So, just to start off, so we're talking today about kind of recruitment, and the section we're going to do first is about CVs and cover letters. So, the aims of the first bit of today's session are to talk about covering letters. And really, covering letters are there to kind of get your foot in the door and get you an interview. We're going to talk about where to start if you haven't done a CV in a long time, and if you have done a CV, but it's from when you were applying for that job when you're at uni working in Wetherspoons, how to make that more relevant for your role as a GP. So a covering letter. So if you don't know what a covering letter is, essentially it's an introduction to the practice, to the role that you're doing, about you, essentially. It's a really powerful thing because I think CVs are can be quite stale, and more or less, if you've made your way through GP training, your CV and the next person's CV are likely to be quite similar. So your CV, your covering letter rather, is your way of standing out to the practice. And there's a few things that I think are really important to include in your covering letter. So I think the first thing that's important is to kind of grab the attention of the people looking at it. So showing that you know about the practice is really important. And there's loads of ways to find out about a practice. There are all these jobs on the LMC website. You can just pick one at random and apply to it, and you may get an interview. But actually, what makes things stand out is if you know a bit about the practice. So the first thing that I would do is just go on the website. Often websites tell you a lot. They tell you how many GPs, how many patients there are, how to get appointments, all that kind of thing. Whether people are smiling on the pictures on the website is often a good sign. And there's plenty of stuff you can get there. The next thing I'd probably do would be to speak with people who've worked at that practice. So that might be friends or the trainees. There may be people that in lower years or your year that have worked at the practice before, and find out what it is like to work at. The next step really would be to make contact. So to send an email and say, I saw your advert, would it be okay to come and have a look around? And I think that is a really important step when you're looking for a job, is to show face, and to turn up and to show that you're interested. And I can tell you your CV and your covering letter. If you have gone along and seem like a nice person, your application will be at the top. So it's amazing, and some of this will seem obvious, but we've had all sorts of things. So some of the CVs that James has received have just said, please see CV attached. And if you're trying to separate yourself out from other people, that's probably not the way to do it. So don't just send an email saying, see attached CV. So write a letter, write a bit about yourself, write about what you like about the practice, write about what you think you can bring to the practice. Just be friendly, basically. The other important thing to remember is that all your communication with the practice forms part of your application. So don't send abrupt emails to the practice manager and expect them to reply within 5 minutes. When you turn up to have a look round, be friendly and nice to the staff that are around, because they will feed back. If they know that you're a new GP who's come to have a look round, they all talk, and they will feed back to the practice manager and the partners. If you're rude to people, or if you're super friendly and nice, that's your first stage of getting people on side. And actually, we've had people that it's hard to tell one applicant from another, but the staff have come to us and said that person was lovely when they came to the practice. They were so friendly, really had a really nice chat with them, and they've ended up with the role. So it's really important to remember that applying for a job is not just the interview and your CV, it's a process. So going on to CVs. So I would say try and make it as concise as possible. If your CV is running to, I would say, any more than 3 pages, it's too long. What you want is bullet points, really. This is about why you are qualified for the role and what relevant experience you have. And so lots and lots of text or things that may not be relevant at all to the role you're applying to, I would just get rid of them. And that's a hard thing to do. You may have worked super hard for your young enterprise award when you were at sixth form or whatever, and that might be one of your proudest moments, getting to meet Princess Anne and having a handshake or whatever. But is that relevant for the role you're going for? It might not be. So these are the headings that I've got on my CV. So I've got my qualifications on there, and I wouldn't go. I would start with university, to be honest. I'm not particularly interested in whether you. I mean, it's good that you've got GCSEs, but that's almost assumed by the fact you are a qualified doctor.
Prerequisite,
yeah,
to go to medical school.
Knowing what you're up to now, knowing your experience, so what your previous roles are, looking for horrendous gaps where you know there might be some questions to be asked if that's not kind of continuous employment. And then it's kind of role specific. So I kind of say, as a GP, it's good to have some experience in teaching, because you're going to be expected to do a bit of teaching in your practice probably. This is potentially more partner kind of stuff, but leadership and management experience. If you've got any publications and presentations, put them in. It's not vital at all. Have you been involved in quality improvement? Well, you all have. So make sure you put your quality improvement and QIAs and QIPs in there. Have you done any postgraduate courses? And that can be simple things from life support to safeguarding, all that kind of stuff. And if you've done any impressive, pre-hospital trauma courses, whatever, put them on. I think you can put something briefly in there about your interests outside of work. It's nice to be able to paint a bit of a picture in your head about the person when you're looking at someone's CV. But I don't think you need to say anything too fancy. I don't think whether you're a former Olympian or not will necessarily mean that you get a job in general practice. So if you want to stand out, to polish your CV, I would use a template. Just on Microsoft Word, if you type in CV, there are lots and lots of templates. Choose one that you like. Headings and bullet points basically is what you want. As I said before, it's really important to prioritize. So if you're going for a education related job, put all of that stuff, front load that, because people's attention span is short. So put the most relevant stuff at the beginning of your CV, whatever the job you're going for might be. Prioritize, as I said before, don't put stuff that's irrelevant. Your 5-meter swimming badge, your bronze Duke of Edinburgh, and your Star Reader Award, despite how sparkly that may be. And just make sure your CV is up to date. It's really common that people submit CVs that they did a year, 18 months ago, and you guys are doing stuff all the time. So just make sure you're doing yourself justice, and make sure you reflect back and say, this was my CV from a while ago. What have I done in that time? And make sure it reflects that. It can feel a bit downheartening if you're reading a CV and all the dates are wrong because someone's not updated it. So I'm going to send around or James might actually send around a CV. Can you put it in the chat? So I'm going to send around a CV in a second for you guys to critique. These are kind of things to think about. So the layout, SPG, that brings me back to my kind of GCSE days of spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Are things spelt correctly? That's obviously first impression kind of thing. Do they have relevant skills for the role? Um, are they going to fit in with the team? So do their skills complement people you've already got? And are there any red flags? So have they put in there something that makes you think, I'm not sure about this person?